What is up, FTN? Welcome in to this Sunday edition of NBA Live, presented as always by SuperDraft Daily Fantasy. Promo code FTN is going to get you that $100 deposit bonus on any deposit of $100 or more. And I'm joined by my friend who got the morning off from the SuperDraft Sunday study this morning. Got to sleep in a little bit, but here with me now to talk some NBA, Javi Perlezzo. Javi, how's it going, man?
What's going on, Zach? Great day, man. Got some good stuff going on. I know. Sorry about you. But my Cowboys bounced back in dramatic fashion. One of the easiest bets of the season if you catch my stuff on FTN bets for NFL. I put 2 units on that Dallas Cowboys. -7 is what I saw it this morning. Yeah, that was too easy, man. But yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll with some basketball. We got some interesting news today with no Dame. So curious to see what we got to say today.
Yeah, absolutely. And a nice little 5-game slate, kind of right in the – I like 5 to 8 game slates, Javi. I don't know about you, but we've been getting – especially last week, it was I think it was 10-3, 13-3, 11 over the Monday through Friday last week. So 5 on the main slate today is pretty nice. So I guess we can just go game by game. Obviously, we're kicking off here 2 hours before main slate locks. So We'll do our game by game breakdown.
I think FanDuel is a lock in an hour. I think.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Milwaukee game's on there.
That is good. Good to know. So we will definitely talk FanDuel as well. Obviously, the ranks are up for DraftKings and SuperDraft, and I appreciate you pointing that out to me, Javi. That FanDuel is indeed locking in about 56 minutes. At the top of the hour. And we just got some news. Giannis confirmed he was listed probable, but the Bucks kind of rug pulled us on that one. I believe it was Friday night where he took a seat. And then Bobby Portis let us all down, I think is what the result of that one was. But we'll get into all that. I guess we could just start there, Javi, since that's the game that kicks off this FanDuel slate. So opening up the pricing there for this game, you see Giannis, who I said is in at 11-4. Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez still out for this Milwaukee team, although Middleton, also a bit of news, expected to play this coming Wednesday. So that's good news for the Milwaukee faithful. Dante DiVincenzo still out for this team. I'm not even sure he's been cleared yet for contact in practice. On the other side, DeAndre Hunter remains out. Bogdan Bogdanovic is questionable with that right ankle soreness. And then Onyeka Okongwu.
I think he's supposed to play.
Is he? Okay. I'm just reading off the last NBA official injury report, and we know that sometimes the beat reporters or pregame media availability can beat those injury reports to the punch. So looking at this first game on FanDuel, Javi, what are you prioritizing from Milwaukee at Atlanta?
So this is interesting, Zach, because for me, I felt like pretty locked into like a Zach LaVine, Paul George kind of build. But with Giannis on the slate on FanDuel, I think on FanDuel, you might have to prioritize. I wouldn't say prioritize, like heavily lock in Giannis there at 11-4. He's a little expensive, but you got to look at some of the pieces around them potentially. I don't know. It's not a great matchup for Milwaukee. Like Atlanta has been struggling a little bit more defensively. They went from one of the better defensive teams to like middle of the pack. But Drew Holiday saw his price spike. Giannis is a little expensive. Bobby Portis is a little expensive. So I'm not finding it like a lock to play anyone here. If anything, it could be Kevin Huerter from the other side, just because he is going to start with no DeAndre Hunter. The thing is, he's just so scoring dependent. He's not going to give you a ton of other stats from like the blocks and steals department, which is important for FanDuel. So it's really just shot based, but 4,400, he's a good piece there. I think that's about it, Zach. Like, we've been running into first games of the night being overly owned. Sometimes it's working out, but for me, I'm not getting there personally. I don't think this is a priority game for me. I just prefer other pieces. Curious your take.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the slate on FanDuel, including this game. I won't hate Clint Capela at 6'4" there. I think that's a pretty modest price at a center position that I think a lot of the ownership at center, because both of these guys are center only on FanDuel, a lot of that ownership is going to go to Yusuf Nurkic on this slate with Dame out, and he's only 500 more. So I think Capela is an interesting large field tournament play there. Bogdan Bogdanovic is in at 4.8 for guard forward eligible on FanDuel. I think that is a decent value play as well. And no issue getting to Giannis. I think that when he sat out on Friday, rather, it was more of a rest day for the reigning Finals MVP. So at 11.4, if you can fit him in, I'm fine with that. This game is actually projected. It'll be interesting, Javi, to watch the line over the next 50 minutes or so, because the Bucks are actually dogs, 1.5-point road dogs in Atlanta in this game. So game that's projected to stay close, decently high total, I believe second highest total on this FanDuel slate. And I think that's really all I'm looking at from this game on FanDuel. Anything that we missed, like Trae Young, 9.2, like it's okay. I'm not going to scoff if you have a Trae Young, Drew Holiday, John Collins, even Bobby Portis with the power forward eligibility at 6.4 on FanDuel is fine. But I don't think I'm going to have any must plays from this game.
Yeah, it's not a priority for me. No must plays. The only guy, again, is Herter, but you're running to the risk of scoring dependency only. I mean, he can definitely score against the Milwaukee defense, who are missing some key pieces. And I don't think Drew Holiday is going to be on him. I think he'll probably be on Trae. So makes me like Trae a little less. Probably focus a little bit on Herter. But, yeah, it's not a priority.
So let's get into the rest of this slate here. 5 games remaining on FanDuel, and these 5 games are the entire main slate on DraftKings and SuperDraft. We can start with Steph Curry going back home to take on the Hornets in his home state. There was some discussion, I don't know if it was late last night or this morning in the NBA Discord, talking about, there's your narrative, Steph going back home. I believe Del Curry is still the color commentator for the Hornets. And so it's always a family affair when the Warriors visit Charlotte. But if you go back through Steph's history playing games at Charlotte, it's not great. There was one 60-plus DK point game in there, but the rest of them were really modest. And the fact that he's up on DraftKings at 11.4, he's an okay play. But like at that price, if we're going to spend 11K plus on this slate, Javi, I would much rather get to Nikola Jokic. So Steph Curry's a fine play for me, but not a priority. What do you think about Steph?
I prefer Steph on FanDuel, where he's 10-2 or 10-3. Sorry, sure. I think that's fine. Like if you can make it happen, that's good. I mean, 10-3 on FanDuel versus Jokic 11K on FanDuel. I think both are fine, but I prefer more. Like this is a great matchup. Charlotte cannot play defense. They play at a fast pace, so I think it's perfectly fine. The guy that kind of stood out to me, and I haven't looked at you and Eddie's rankings here, is Draymond Green at 6,200 against Charlotte. Yeah. I feel like he's too cheap. We haven't really seen an upside in 4 of his last 5 games. He does have under 30 or under or lower in DK points, so not a ton of upside. But then before that, he's played in Charlotte this year where he had 30 exactly. He's just, I don't know. I think it's really been focusing more around the Steph show than anything else. But on DraftKings, Draymond's the one that stood out to me the most. Surprisingly, I'm not on this game, which is kind of weird, and I don't know if that's a bad thing. Zach, maybe you can talk me into this a little bit more, but I'm not getting into this game too much.
Oh yeah, and I didn't really pick out any priorities from this game either, but I think it's important, I think, for us to do a deep enough dive here where we find some guys that we would prefer, especially if we're building multiple lineups, because this is the highest game total on the slate. Warriors are 5-point road favorites here. And you mentioned Draymond Green did finally stick out to me. I think maybe for the first time in like 2 weeks, his price down to 6.2, as you mentioned, still has that power forward eligibility on DraftKings. And while he hasn't been producing at an extremely high level, he's still well above a fantasy point per minute. It's really been the minutes load that hasn't been there for Draymond. Like they've been involved in a couple blowouts, like only 22 minutes for him against Houston, 4 games back, got up to 30 in a tougher front court matchup against Atlanta. but then only playing 21 minutes against Minnesota in that blowout, 28 minutes last time against Chicago. And those minutes were cut short by a blowout as well. So I'm right there with you. Like, we had multiple guys ranked 8s from this Golden State team, Draymond included. It was Draymond, Steph Curry, Jordan Poole, who we can talk about. And then somebody who, if he's in, would get a bump up in the rankings, Damien Lee, down to 3-2 on DraftKings, I think is a sneaky guard forward eligible value that if he is in, he's got hip soreness, I believe sat out their last game against Chicago, maybe 2 games in a row now that Damien Lee has sat out, but now that he's down near the minimum price, missed the last 2, Minnesota and Chicago, he sat out. But if he's back today, man, like, this is a guy who's been solidly in this rotation, playing low 20s in minutes. Earlier in the season was seeing more time, but those minutes have leveled off a bit. But still, if he's getting into the low 20s in minutes at 3-2, I have some interest if I'm running multiple lineups. You want any Damien Lee if he plays, or would you take shots elsewhere?
I think I'd take shots elsewhere because I think the focus today is Anthony Simons. I think he gets the start or a bump today with no Dame. And at 3,500, I mean, I think it's a fine pivot off potentially a chalky Simons today with Damien Lee, but I'm not landing on it, Zach. Like, I'm not a guy that I really like to play. I get the price and the eligibility, but he hasn't really topped 23 minutes in 4 straight games. Before they saw 33, 26, 23, and I think it's just like I don't know. At his price, it seems just a little. If there's a blowout, he could get the blowout run, but there's no ceiling there. At 3,200, you don't need a lot, but
Sure.
For me, I'm not landing on Damien Lee. Really, the guy that stands out on DraftKings is Draymond. On FanDuel, it's Steph Curry. Wiggins is pretty cheap. Our boy Triple H was asking about Wiggins. He was 6,300 on both sites. I never like to play Wiggins unless Steph or maybe even Draymond are out. But since both are in, he's not a priority for me at all. The Charlotte side is interesting too because Golden State has been playing better defensively. But Terry Rozier, we're still waiting for him to have a breakout game. I don't know. I think that he's the guy that's stood out for me more than anything else. He does have 27 or more DK points in 4 straight, but that's not going to cut it at 6,200. So Rozier's the guy that stood out to me. LaMelo's a little expensive, but I mean, LaMelo, he's just been playing great lately. So I think you can't ignore LaMelo, even though he is officially priced over the 10K range. Yeah. I just think that if you are going to do that, it's probably better just to go Harden or Jokic. I prefer Jokic personally, especially on DraftKings over that price. But Rozier's the guy that stood out. Like, I would not exit him or LaMelo if doing like 20 lineups. But again, not a priority for me. This game surprisingly is not a priority for me because Charlotte just sucks defensively, to put it simple. No,
absolutely. I agree with you on Rozier. 6'2" is still too cheap for the opportunity that he can see on a night-to-night basis. Obviously mid to low teens in shots the last 2 times out for this team, but immediately before that, and they had all the guards healthy for these 2 games when they swung through the Staples Center back-to-back, played the Clippers, 22 shot attempts for Terry Rozier, played the Lakers the next night, 22 shot attempts for Terry Rozier. So we know that's the kind of opportunity he can see on a night-to-night basis, and at 6'2", there's still a lot of upside there. But I think this team as a whole, Javi, in my opinion, is mostly priced correctly. Like LaMelo Ball, you're pricing him for his upside there at 10-1. So most of these guys just secondary options for me. LaMelo, Miles Bridges still producing really well and getting big minutes. Producing at a lower rate is Gordon Hayward, but both of those guys, 7-8 and 7-2 respectively, I think are fine plays. I would prefer to spend the 600 to get to Bridges if you have to go there. But I think in one lineup, I'm certainly prioritizing other plays from other teams in that 7K range. Mason Plumlee just really hasn't had the same type of rates that we're used to from him, well below a fantasy point per minute. After being a guy the last couple years who, when he got the time, could be a triple-double threat, and we just haven't seen that with the way this Charlotte team is constructed. And I think this game could go small. The Warriors never like to play Kevon Looney big minutes unless they absolutely have to, and I don't think this is a place where they need to. So Kelly Oubre kind of stands out to me, not as a priority, but just as a guy that has guard forward eligibility. We know he's going to take a lot of shots in the time that he does get. And it's just the minutes volatility is what's keeping his price down. But to me, he makes for an interesting tournament play. We just saw him go for 37 real points at Memphis 4 nights ago. So at 4-3, playing against his old team here, I think that if you're running, 10 to 20 lineups or any excuse me, amount more than that, Kelly Oubre is somebody who would make my pool and I would have exposure to. I don't have a ton of interest in Cody Martin at 3-2. Minutes kind of waning as more of this front court time goes to guys like LaMelo Ball, who his price has been rising while his minutes have been rising, and that's what Charlotte and LaMelo fans have loved to see. But from a pricing standpoint, it's priced these guys out of being priority plays for, I think, you and me. So anything else from this game? I think we kind of glossed over Jordan Poole a little bit, priced at 6K. The shots have really been mid to high teens. We only saw him take 12 attempts in that last one. But I think at 6K, he's somebody that would make my pool. But again, there's just, with these prices, there's nobody I can find to fit in like a 9 or a 10 rank for me.
Yeah, and I find it tough to put a priority over the Portland guys, really. Something I do want to do is our friends at SuperDraft. I do like LaMelo Ball at the 1.2x multiplier. I think that's fine. I don't hate going LaMelo and CJ McCollum at 1.3x multiplier there. So I think having those two at your guard spot on SuperDraft is a great way to start it out. And then you can move on to Levine, who's 1.25. We'll touch on that later. But there's some good multipliers out there. I think LaMelo not being a 1x is a huge advantage there.
Yeah, absolutely. LaMelo and Steph Curry, the two guys from this game that got higher rankings on SuperDraft. Steph also sitting slightly off that multiplier floor 1.05x there, and with no salary cap considerations, he makes for a stronger play, in my opinion, on SuperDraft.
Dang, who does these SuperDraft multipliers, man? That's crazy.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Well, let's move on to Phoenix at Houston. This is a matchup we've already seen once this year. DeAndre Ayton still listed doubtful, not expected to play. So that's going to open up, Frank Kaminsky again, JaVale McGee in our lives once again on this slate. Out of those two guys, Javi, specifically on DraftKings, and then we can talk other sites, 5-2 for Frank the Tank. JaVale's still $1,000 cheaper at 4-2, but only center eligible. Either of those guys priorities for you today?
I mean, on a smaller slate, I would usually say that's not on a bigger slate, I'd say no. On a smaller slate, I think it's totally fine. I'm not landing on Frank the Tank. I just think that that multiplier is a little. I'm not a multiplier. That pricing on DraftKings is a little bit steep. And I get it. He's been crushing since Aiden's been out. But Zach, I'm curious to see. I got to pull up your rankings, but I'm guessing that McGee is probably more of a priority than these guys over here at than Kaminsky and these other value guys. So if you need a value center, I don't hate McGee. I think this is a great spot that we can definitely go to him against Houston. The thing is, if this game does get out of hand, we could see Kaminsky get some good run here. So I believe we've seen him in a blowout with no Aiden. He's playing the big minutes here. So if you're playing the blowout narrative, I say go Kaminsky. If you need the salary, I say go McGee if you think this game stays close. But I honestly don't think this game stays close. I think they blow him out of the water. You can't really predict blowouts. But I'm predicting a blowout today for Phoenix and one for Brooklyn. And because of that, I'm not going to be playing much of both games except value guys. But I'm curious your take on Kaminsky and if you can confirm that he does get the blowout run here if it does get out of hand.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about this matchup, which took place, I want to say 10 days ago or something, I don't know if you remember, but DeAndre Ayton sat one game, I think came back the next game, which was this matchup with Houston that Phoenix had at home. And he played 26 minutes in that one and then has sat since then. And so we didn't get to see a ton of Frank Kaminsky in that game. And I think he's going to soak up the majority of those Ayton minutes. So you'll likely get JaVale McGee still starting here. And I think both are fine. Obviously, you get McGee at the discount. on DraftKings, and both, I think McGee 1.7x on SuperDraft and Frank the Tank 1.75. So if you have the salary, I prefer to get to Frank. I know the price is coming up. 5.2 never feels great to pay for a guy like Frank Kaminsky, but the power forward eligibility on DraftKings gives me a lot of reassurance that I can still get guys into my lineup like Nikola Jokic or Tony Bradley, who we'll get to later. And we've seen Frank's upside when he's hitting from the field in 2 of his last 4 games, 32 DK points and 46 3/4 DK points when he's shooting the ball well and the peripherals are showing up. I think this is a spot where kind of an up and down matchup against Houston with Chris Paul throwing him the rock. I like both of those guys, but I would prioritize Kaminsky if you have the salary. But flipping over to FanDuel real quick, because our guy Triple H was in here asking at 5,700 over on FanDuel is Frank the Tank, who also has that power forward center eligibility on FD. Is he too expensive for you there?
I think so. Again, it really boils down to if you think this game does get out of hand, because McGee will not get blowout run, but Frank the Tank should be getting the blowout run. So I think he's fine, like if you want to play the blowout narrative, but it's a little pricey for me for Frank the Tank. I mean, again, you look at the like numbers for Frank and what he's done since Aiden's been, obviously he gets a big boost. He's obviously been playing here, but he's seen like 27, 32, 22, 29 minutes in those 4 games. I mean, are we going to see a 22-minute game from Frank the Tank, or are we going to see one of those 32-minute games like he did against Portland? So in a blowout game against Memphis, he saw 27 minutes still. So I think it could work out, but it's just, I can't stomach spending more than $5K for Frank the Tank. So, yeah, I don't know if you have a different suggestion from that, Zach, but for me, I'm not really landing on too much Kaminsky today just because of the price, really.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think the minutes will be solidified as long as DeAndre Ayton remains out. And again, he is listed as doubtful. The last time these two teams faced off, DeAndre Ayton played 26 minutes. So I think Frank the Tank 5.7 is like his DraftKings price. It's getting up there, but I still think you can play him at that price and expect high 20s, maybe even low 30s in minutes if the game breaks right. If JaVale McGee either gets in foul trouble or is struggling trying to guard Christian Wood, if we get some Wood at the 5 time here, or I should say extended time from Christian Wood at the 5. So yeah, I'm fine with Frank, but he's just, he's not a lock it in play like he was when he was sub 4K in a similar situation like this with DeAndre Ayton out. But let's talk about some of the guys up top here, because Devin Booker and Chris Paul prices have been rising as their production has with DeAndre Ayton out. On DraftKings, I think both guys actually more expensive on DraftKings. Booker sitting at 9K flat and Chris Paul right behind him at 8.7. I think I would rather play these guys on FanDuel, where even though they're just Chris Paul static at point guard, Devin Booker only shooting guard, 8.5 for Chris Paul and 8.4 for Devin Booker is much more palatable to me than their prices on DraftKings. So how are you dealing with the top of this Phoenix roster?
Yeah, I think FanDuel's fine, but again, I don't expect this game to be close. I don't expect this game to be competitive. I just think like by the mid of the 3rd quarter, we're going to see a Clippers and T-Wolves matchup like last night all over again. So again, you can't predict that. If it does stay close, it's got to be somebody from the Rockets that's going to keep them in the game, and then Booker and Paul are perfectly fine. But I wouldn't play both. If I had to choose one, it's most likely going to be Paul for the other stats like steals, and he's obviously got triple-double upside too. So, but for me, Zach, I can't stomach it. I get the matchup. It's really just Kaminsky or McGee with the lean to McGee for value. And then move on. Like this is, it's tough to stomach. Again, I've said it so many times that you can't predict blowouts. I hate predicting for a blowout, but I just prefer to do the other competitive games tonight, like the Portland one and the Clippers and those matchups later, which we'll touch on in a little bit. But given like this matchup here, I mean, Houston is one of the worst teams going against one of the best teams in the NBA. So that's the thing that you have to factor in. And then maybe it helps out that Aiden's out, but I don't think it matters. They still got Bridges there, Paul, Booker. So for me, Zach, I know I hate to just say that I crossed this game off in a 5-game slate, but because of the blowout potential, it's really just the value pieces.
Yeah, so how about, like, if we think this game's going to blow out, point guard, shooting guard eligible on DraftKings, how do you feel about a guy like Cameron Payne at 3.5? I think he's somebody that could get
Cameron Payne is somebody that, had some connection issues. I don't know if it was you or me, but I think Cameron Payne, he's fine. Like, I think if you want to blow out, he's going to be getting anywhere between 18 to 22 minutes, which we've seen in the last 3 games. So he's a guy that's, we saw his floor can be like 15 points, and at 3,500, that's fine. But again, you're running into the risk of Simons, who I think has a legit floor and a higher ceiling than all these guys. But if you need the extra money, I think Cameron Payne like that for a blowout, I think he's perfectly fine. And I've seen some people talk about him. I'm only doing 2 lineups today. I don't know if I will land on him, but he is a guy that's interesting and caught my eye. So.
Well, if we flip over to this Houston side, you look at a guy like Christian Wood, who's up, or I guess I should say down to 8.6, because he was above 9K for the last 3 Houston games. So center only now on DraftKings, but at 8.6 and with DeAndre Ayton out, I think this is a guy who can really get on top of this price tag of what should be lower ownership today. Already an 18 and 15 double-double in that first matchup against Phoenix, added on 5 assists and 3 stocks for good measure for just over 50 DraftKings points. So is Christian Wood somebody that you could be looking to, or is it just kind of fit into, how you're building where you don't want to spend 8.6 on a guy like Christian Wood in this game?
Yeah, I don't want to spend 8.6 on a guy like Christian Wood. I mean, again, he's got an upside. That's good, but I'm looking at a guy like Daniel Theis, who should see like 27, 28, 29 minutes. The game blows out, maybe you'll see like 25 minutes here. But again, they haven't really been blown out in their last 5 games. They've had some low scoring ones, but Daniel Theis, he has like a floor of 20 DK points. And at 4,100, that won't kill you on this slate, on a 5-game slate. So Daniel Theis is the interesting one to me more than anything else. Jalen Green, obviously promising young star. His minutes are low 30s at least, at the minimum, unless this game does get out of hand. But he's seen 30-plus minutes in every game except one this season, and that was a massive blowout against OKC. So his minutes are safe. Going against Phoenix, not the best matchup. He has been struggling a little bit to start his young career, but he's got some minute upside there. So I think Jalen Green is very interesting to me. But again, value guy, so that's why he sticks out to me. And then Daniel Theis, again, I think he can eat a little bit here. Maybe he gets 30 DK points, and that'll be optimal potentially. So I do like Theis. I do like Jalen Green.
Yeah, I think all these guys, looping in like Jayshawn Tate, Kevin Porter Jr., even Eric Gordon down at 4.3, guard forward eligible on DraftKings. All of those guys, fine options to me. None of them priorities, and I think it's just kind of, if you want to get a Houston guy, it's kind of a grab bag of those 5 that we mentioned, and more of like a last guy in type play, whichever one would fit in your last spot. But if you look on SuperDraft, you got Christian Wood at 1.25x, I believe. Double check that. 1.25x for Christian Wood, and then 1.5x for Kevin Porter Jr. So I think I like those 2 guys a little bit more on SuperDraft than the other 2 sites. DeAndre Ayton, timely news here, is in fact ruled out. Abdel Nader will play, and we did get an Oklahoma City starting lineup who are taking on Brooklyn in this next game we'll break down. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luguentz Dort, Josh Giddey, Darius Bazley, and Mark Daigneault's center roulette lands on Jeremiah Robinson Earl once again today. So JRE getting into that starting lineup. That'll probably shift the rankings around a little bit because as unproductive as he is from a fantasy point per minute standpoint, this is a guy who's gotten above 24 minutes, I should say above 23 minutes in 3 of the last 5 games for the Thunder, and produced it at just a fine rate. 14 boards last time against the Kings in a victory for the Thunder, who are actually on a little winning streak here, 4 in a row for the Thunder. I'm not sure that's going to continue with James Harden and Kevin Durant coming back home to Oklahoma City tonight. But the Thunder definitely going to give it their all. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl also getting that forward eligibility on DraftKings. But Javi, we've got we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter. So maybe we've got some people that aren't subscribed to FTN Daily yet. So, I mean, if anybody's been struggling with their NBA DFS to start the year, you got to check out FTNDaily.com. Our NBA package includes a state-of-the-art optimizer that covers every slate every day. And shout out Kyle Murray, who's kind of the wizard behind the player projections, the optimizer there. 2 takedowns for him on FanDuel last week using his own optimizer, the proprietary player and ownership projections from Kyle Murray himself and Alex Blickel pitching in with Kyle. We've got NBA on-off splits, advanced DVP tools, the infamous FTN Daily Premium Discord channel where we're counting those green beans every night, and rankings from Fast Eddie Fear and myself, Kawhisenberg DFS, every single day. The pricing for NBA starts at $49.99 per month. You can use the code FTNTV for 15% off every month. And to repeat, you can use that code FTNTV every month for $15 off your subscription. So if you haven't joined us at FTNDaily.com, I don't know what you're waiting for. You can come join in on all the fun and all the winning that we're doing here across all sports, not just NBA. But Javi, we were talking Brooklyn at OKC, and we can stick with the Thunder side here. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander remains priced up on DraftKings at 8-8. But again, if you think this game stays competitive and close, even into the fourth quarter, not even the whole game, even as the fourth quarter starts, if this game is competitive, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander probably going to have a big hand in that. He's 7-9 on FanDuel, and you get a multiplier, a nice multiplier for him as well on SuperDraft at 1.25x. So any interest in your boy SGA tonight?
No, Zach. Again, I alluded to it before. Like, I want value pieces from this game too, and I'm curious your take. So, I saw you and Eddie's rankings here. I see Lamarcus Aldridge ranked quite a bit. I know we've seen a little bit of resurgence, and I know he's your boy. So, take off your Spurs homer hat there, Zach. I'm just kidding. But like, if you had to choose between a guy like him or McGee, it's got to be Lamarcus, right? I see him ranked higher, so I'm just curious your take. Is it just the resurgence that you're interested in and the matchup here, or?
It's really the availability of the rest of this Brooklyn front court, Javi. Like, if you look at the Brooklyn injury report, obviously Kyrie's still sitting out. Nick Claxton's still out with that illness. I think it was non-COVID illness, which is kind of mysterious at this point that he's not back, and we don't have much word on him. But the fact that Day'Ron Sharpe and Paul Millsap both joining him on the inactives list today, to me, just one solidifies Blake Griffin's minutes. We've seen him kind of bounce around this year. It seemed like he had almost a 20-minute cap on him to start the year. Then we had Paul Millsap go for some personal issues. Nick Claxton started to sit out with his illness, and the minutes started reaching high 20s, low 30s for Blake for a couple games. Then it came back down. And with those two guys out, I think he gets mid to high 20s tonight at 4-2 power forward eligible. That's just fine. But I'm prioritizing Lamarcus Aldridge over him all day, every day. Only $100 more. A center only kind of sucks for Aldridge on DraftKings, but he's been producing at pretty much similar rates to what we saw in San Antonio, obviously coming off the bench most nights, but he's getting a ton of usage. You look last game against the Pelicans, 22 minutes, only 6 shots, so only 19.5 DK points, but that doesn't kill you at what was a 4-1 price tag in that game. The 2 games prior to that, Javi, 22 and 23 minutes, but 29 shots combined in those 2 games and averaged 34 DK points, just over 34 DK points in those 2 games. So I think the truth tonight is probably somewhere in the middle, but at 4-3, if you're getting mid to high 20s in DK points, you're gonna love that at your center spot for a nice value there. So I'm pretty high on Lamarcus Aldridge with an OKC front court that really has no chance of stopping his turnaround jumper, and I think the minutes are solidified with those other front court guys out. So that's my take on the Brooklyn front court.
Hey man, you don't gotta sell me. I'm doing I said I was gonna do 2 lineups. I think I'm stuck on 1 lineup here, so I'll switch it. I had McGee in there, but I'll switch it to Aldridge. I'll trust you. Plus, I mean, he's going to eat Robinson Earl up, right?
You would think so.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to see 22 to 23 minutes. Even in a blowout recently against Orlando, he still saw 22 minutes where he had 34 DK points. So he's cheap enough. Like, I think it's fine. And then, so now I'm going to bring it back to you. I know I've done a lot of the talking, but what about Luguentz Dort's? He's the Harden shutdown guy, right? Do you think that comes into effect here, or no? Because I mean, that's your boy.
Well, there's been a multitude of factors shutting down Harden at different points of this season, whether it's the officials or his own play, being out of shape, or a guy like Luguentz Dort being on the other side of the ball. But one thing I wanted to just wrap up, Javi, real quick with that that Brooklyn front court and Lamarcus Aldridge is that Derek Favors, even though he's not starting, it is active tonight. Mike Muscala will sit out, I believe, for rest. So yeah, I assume these guys are on I apologize not knowing their schedule for tomorrow. I assume the Thunder are on the slate tomorrow, and that we'll see Favors rest and Mike Muscala play. But Favors probably still an above average defender, average at worst at this point in his career. Picked up power forward eligibility, which is interesting. He is not playing the 4 for this Thunder team, but just it's not a complete walkover for Lamarcus Aldridge, but I just wanted to make that point because he won't see all the Jeremiah Robinson Earl in this matchup. But getting back to what you asked about, Javi, Luguentz Dort, only shooting guard on DraftKings. Always interesting to see where they decide to draw the line on some of these players with their positional eligibility. But Dort, you talked about it. He's going to be out there trying to guard James Harden to the best of his ability for as much time, probably as Harden is out there, or as long as this game remains competitive. And the price coming back up a little bit on DraftKings, but at 5K flat, I think he's just a fine play. Probably going to see, between 34 and 36 minutes in this one, and his shot started to fall over the last 2 games and got to the line 10 times against the Pelicans 4 nights ago. So 36 DK points in his last 2. I'm not sure he quite gets to that level today, but the fact that he's going to be out there, Brooklyn is not a team that scares you from a defensive standpoint. So I think Dort is just a fine play tonight alongside Darius Bazley. I think he's also a decent play. I would prefer Dort out of those 2. Josh Giddey kind of priced correctly. The minutes have been scaring me on Giddey the last couple of games. Came out really early in the third quarter last time out against Sacramento. So I've cooled off a little bit on Josh Giddey at this point, but not going to scoff at you if I see him in your lineup, guard forward eligible on DraftKings. And again, like I was talking in the chat, I believe it was Triple H asking about pairing KD and Harden on FanDuel. I think if you do that, it's not crazy, but I would want to have a run back from this Oklahoma City team. So if you think the game stays close and both Harden and Durant go off, I would probably want SGA in my lineup as well. Kenrich Williams, also somebody, when you look at the injury report for this Thunder team, they've got a ton of guys down in the G League on assignment. Teo Maledon, Trey Mann are the 2 guards, that stand out to me, because now you've got an opportunity for a guy like Kenrich Williams to probably play into the low to mid 20s in minutes. And at 3-2 on DK, he's somebody that I would include in my player pool if I was playing multiple lineups. Where else are you looking in this Brooklyn OKC game?
Yeah, so because I think it just gets out of hand, I prefer it. But if you're going to play Harden or Durant, this game has to stay close. This game can't be blown out by the middle of the third quarter. Brooklyn has been blowing out some teams even without Kyrie, but I think a run back of Shai Gilgeous is actually a great call here. I think that's fine. But again, I'm building it differently. I'm building around the Clippers and Portland and those 2 matchups today, which we'll touch on now next. But for me, I do like the value pieces of Lamarcus Aldridge. You talked me into it. I'm doing it. All right. So if it fails, Zach, I'm going back to you and I'm going to tell you're Spurs homer. No, but for me, I think either one is fine. I just think that, again, because of the price of Harden at 10-8, because of the price of Kevin Durant, which is 10-7. So we saw now Durant is cheaper than Harden, where we've seen vice versa lately. This game stays close. One of these 2 could go off, but I would not play both Triple H. I would play one or the other, and I'd bring it back with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because it needs to stay close. Again, I do believe in Dort's defense. I don't think no one could really shut down Harden. I wouldn't call him the Harden shutdown guy, but I do prefer Durant here in this spot, just given his small forward and power forward eligibility. So I think it's perfectly fine if you want to build around that narrative. But again, not landing on anybody from OKC. But if you are going to play somebody, it's going to be my boy Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. But I want to bring that back with a Harden Durant. Like, this game needs to stay close for either one of these guys to be optimal. Lamarcus Aldridge, if this game blows out, he can still get there at 4,300. So I like Lamarcus Aldridge a lot now. I blame you for this, Zach, that I'm going to be playing him in my single entry. But I think it's fine. I mean, you made some great points about that. And, I think there is higher upside here with him, especially going against OKC. Derek Favors is not ideal, but he's not starting. It's going to be Robinson Earl. So maybe he just gets Robinson Earl on defense and eat him up. So we did have a question about Robinson Earl or Jeff Green. I think based off your rankings and also what I've seen and what I don't have Jeff Green, but it'd be Jeff Green for me. He ranks out better. He's actually been playing pretty well. He's not the standard Fitbit guy we're used to.
Yeah.
And I think he's got like a legit floor of like 20 DK points, which at 3,700, you can use that. So it is going to be Jeff Green for me.
Yeah, I think if I had to choose between the two, I'm probably going Jeff Green. I think the minutes floor is much more safe. But we've really seen Jeff Green's rates fall off precipitously with this Denver team. Just the last game, 31 minutes, 27 DK points, which was just fine for his 3.8 price tag. But you look at the Indiana game when Jokic was out, 28 minutes, 17.5 DK points. The game before when Michael Porter Jr. first sat out, 34 minutes, 15.5 DK points. Jeff Green's pretty volatile, but so is Jeremiah Robinson Earl. So I still think I lean with you, and I would choose Jeff Green in that scenario. That's a perfect lead-in. I guess the last thing I'll say, I'm with you on Durant over Harden if I have to choose one. But that leads into Portland at Denver, where we have maybe the most important news of the night on the Portland side. But we'll stick with Denver to start here. Nikola Jokic with Michael Porter Jr. to me is an absolute smash play. He could be 12K plus, and I would still have a lot of interest here, sitting at 11.6 on DraftKings. I would be kind of surprised if we didn't see a triple-double here against Portland. But how are you treating Nikola Jokic tonight? Obviously on FanDuel, 11K flat as well, and sitting on the multiplier floor at 1x on SuperDraft.
Yeah, I like him on SuperDraft, even at that 1x. I like him on DraftKings. I think he's a little pricey, 11.6, but given it's a small slate, like even if he has 65 points, which normally on a bigger slate that might not be optimal, I think it's something that's needed. So as of right now, I'm building my single entry with Paul George and Jokic. Lord help me, Zach. But it fits with CJ McCollum too. I'm not going to give away my whole lineup, but I think it's fine. He's going to be the highest scoring player on the slate. I don't like to usually target Nurkic as a defender, but he's not playing much. I know there's a lot of love going towards Nurkic too, but guys, I mean, I can't trust the minutes. I understand like his point per minute analysis, and he's seen twice in the last 4 games. 22 minutes he had 46 DK points. 27 minutes he had 43 DK points. Like, that is a massive point per minute monster right there. Like, that's what you guys call a point per minute monster. But he's not getting more than 30 minutes at all. Like, he saw 29 minutes last game. That was the most he's seen all season besides opening night. I just can't trust his minutes. So for me, I'm not prioritizing Nurkic even without Damian Lillard here. For me, I want to play Jokic. I'm curious your take on Bones Highland, because now it seems like he is getting some more love and more playing time here. Barton has stepped up quite a bit. If you're doing 3 lineups, I think you should throw Barton in one of those and then fade Jokic. I think that's a phenomenal thing to do. You could potentially play them both. We saw Barton had a terrible game last time, but he still got 35 minutes. Before that, he had 45 or more DK points in 3 of his last 4 games. So I think Barton's quite sneaky at 6,800. So I think he is pretty cheap. And I think if you're doing 3 lineups, again, what I would do is play Jokic in 2, play Barton in 1. Because Barton, again, he's stepped up his game since Michael Porter went down. I understand, like, he had that downer of a game last time, but that's how you win in DFS. You play the guy who let everyone down last time, and you play him the next time. It's been working most of the season. So I like Barton a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but I like him a little bit. My priority though here is still Jokic, and now I need your help, Zach. Cameron Payne or Bones Highland, because again, last guy in. I can't get my mind around it. I know you're the Bones whisperer, so talk me into this.
Yeah, man. It's funny because as Bones Highland, a guy that I love, watched his ascent in the draft process. We played him a lot in summer league here when we were crushing summer league DFS, preseason DFS, and took him a while to break into this rotation. And now he has, but to the detriment of one of my favorite players to watch, Facundo Campazzo, now ejected from this rotation. Mike Malone giveth and Mike Malone taketh away. I think if it's between Cameron Payne and Bones Highland, I think I'm gonna go Cameron Payne, man. That game we talked about.
That's what I have.
We talked about how we think that game's gonna blow out. Even with DeAndre Ayton out of there, and with how guard heavy the Rockets are too, you could see Cameron Payne playing alongside Chris Paul. I don't think that's something that would be crazy to see for a couple minutes. I think Cameron Payne's just a little bit safer, and they have very similar upsides here. Bones Highland, very talented player, but also shot well last game. I think the peripherals were a little bit elevated in that 30 DK point game against Atlanta. 21 minutes, 30 DK points. It's a little lofty in terms of setting that as your baseline expectation for Bones, at least at this point of his career. To your point about Will Barton, he's been great outside of the last game where he let everybody down. And I think a good example of, somebody letting down the field, or at least us here at FTN Daily, we were all over Isaiah Stewart that first game with Kelly Olynyk out, and he dudded hard. And then everybody went back to him last night, and he was great. So I think that's an astute point by you talking about Will Barton here. Obviously, 3 of his last 5 outings above 45 DK points for this team. The minutes, the usage will be there. Price up at 6'8", so he's not like a slam it in, lock it in play for me, but guard forward eligible. I'm just fine getting healthy amounts of Will Barton in your builds. I think also Aaron Gordon showed us kind of his ceiling with a guy like MPJ out of the lineup hitting 45 DK, again, aided by some great shooting, 5 stocks. So, that's not the baseline of production we should set for Aaron Gordon. But at 5'4", definitely in play. Kind of a similar story for Monte Morris, 4'5", not a priority, but again, with so much usage open to go around in this starting group, he should definitely make your MME builds. And again, Nikola Jokic to me is just, if you can get him into as many lineups as possible, that's something that I have a ton of interest in doing tonight. And then flipping over to this other side where we kind of teased that the big news was coming from this Trailblazers side of the game. Javi, Damian Lillard will take a seat, leaving us with, on DraftKings, a 7.6K CJ McCollum, 6.7K Yusuf Nurkic, then going down the line where, Norman Powell should pick up some more usage, Nasir Little might get some more time, and Anthony Simons sitting at 3.5K, probably the value play du jour on DraftKings this evening. To me, though, Javi, my priorities here are getting CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic into my lineups. We know what CJ McCollum does over the last few years when Damian Lillard sits. The ceiling is elevated. His price is down from where it has been. He's at a $900 discount from where it was just 4 nights ago. To me, this sets up where CJ McCollum is somebody that I would have no trouble locking into my lineups tonight. I don't think you need to do that to get over the field, though. Because of how much ownership is going to go to somebody like Anthony Simons. And we were talking about Nurkic a little bit earlier, down to 6'7". Obviously, the minutes have been a concern throughout the season and really throughout his career. He's never been a guy who gets 30-plus minutes. But if you look at his matchups in the last couple of years against his old team and obviously with Nikola Jokic on the other side, they need his services a little bit more tonight. So I would be surprised if he doesn't touch that 28-minute mark in this game. And if you look at his recent history against Jokic and the Nuggets, last year, 20 minutes for almost 46 DK points, a little bit of a dud the game before that. But in his last 6 games against this, I guess I can extend it out, his last 7 games against this Denver Nuggets team, he's eclipsed 41 DK points 5 of those 7 games. So I have a ton of interest in Yusuf Nurkic here, just because of obviously Dame missing, but also the matchup where you're going to see a ton of Nikola Jokic on the other side. So how are you attacking the Blazers?
I'm going to play at least 3 of them. Dame Lillard opens up a little bit here. Dame Lillard, he's had a rough season. to start out, but it's still a guy that does eat into some usage. So I do like Anthony Simons a lot. He should get the start. I don't know if that's confirmed yet or if it's happening, but having 3,500. Let's see what you're putting in there. Having $3,500 on DraftKings for Anthony Simons, who potentially is going to start against a Denver team that does struggle in defending guards. I don't like to target against that, but I think CJ McCollum, Simons, those are the two guys. And then I love Norman Powell today. Like, I think the guy that's going to step up here isn't really Nurkic. Again, Nurkic is going against Jokic too, which is no walk in the park defensively too. I'm not saying that like Jokic is going to shut him down, but I'm fading Nurkic in two lineups. If I'm doing if I do a third lineup, maybe I'll go the other route. But for me, I love Simons, I love McCollum, and I love Powell. I think Powell's going to be the guy that steps up quite a bit here in this spot. It really doesn't matter if his shot's falling in. I think he's going to be a guy that can get big minutes here in this spot. This game stays close. And I think he's going to get the biggest bump of usage. So I like Simons, I like McCollum, I like Powell, and I don't hate going all three. I think you do need to run back with either Barner or Joker, like we said. And then the other guy, and I was hoping that he would gotten some love from the Eddie rankings, is Robert Covington. So I know you guys gave him an 8 on your rankings, but I think, again, this guy, notorious, he's known for his defense. He's notorious for being a Fitbit guy. But 4,100 and potentially a game where he can see big minutes here. I think he's sneaky, and he can get defensive stats, which helps you out on FanDuel too. So I wouldn't play all of them. I think the play is Simons, McCollum, and then going either Powell or Covington. Like if you need the salary, go Covington. I'm fine with that. But I'm curious your take on why Covington didn't get a 9 in your rankings. Is it just because he's a notorious Fitbit guy, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, since he came to the Blazers, we've seen his usage, his shot attempts, and particularly come down. As long as Nurkic is in there and healthy, his rebound chances go down. And as long as these high usage guards are in there, Anthony Simons not exactly a low usage player himself. There's just not a ton of opportunity for peripheral stats with Robert Covington, and the price reflects it. 4-1, he's fine. An 8 to me is somebody who I would include in my player pool if I was building 20 lineups. But not a priority for me, just because we have to rely on him, running hot from the field, and he can do that. But what's his ceiling on the year? Like 20, I think it's 28 3/4 DK points. Like at 4-1, that we would take that every day, right? But if that's his ceiling at 4-1, there's so many other guys on this slate, in my opinion, that just hold a higher ceiling for either a similar price or cheaper price. I would just much rather get to eat the chalk on Anthony Simons today at 3.5.
Me too. Yeah.
And then eat the chalk on some of these guys in the last game, which I've been waiting to talk about. Man, you talk about playing guys who let down the field the game before. Enter Tony Bradley, 3.5 on DraftKings. He should get the start again here. And with Ivica Zubac and Isaiah Hartenstein on the other side, I think he sees more than the 13 minutes that he got against Golden State in that just terrible showing from the Bulls 2 nights ago. So I don't think you have to play a ton of Tony Bradley in multiple lineups to get well above the field. So I have a lot of interest there. And then I think what the field is going to do is gravitate towards Alize Johnson, who was much better in his 21 minutes from a fantasy standpoint last time out. But I prefer Tony Bradley slightly. I think both of those guys, fantastic values in the front court tonight. How are you treating Bradley, Alize Johnson, and then the rest of these Bulls team?
Yeah, that's going to be my next question to you. Do you play Alize Johnson or do you play Jeff Green here? For me, I think it's Alize here, and that's who I have, just because he is a high point per minute guy. So for me, in my placeholder and what the lineup I'm having, I do like Alize Johnson once again. I see he has a 9 ranking for you. I see Bradley has a 9 ranking too. So like if doing multiple lineups, I like having one of each and going that route. I don't know if I would play both. I think I'd go one or the other, but I think they are cheap enough where you can play both, so it's fine. Zach LaVine getting a ton of steam, as well as he should be. It's a big big gap to fill with no Vooch here. DeRozan. DeRozan I'm a little worried about today because I feel like Paul George is going to be on him for the most part. And if that's the case, this is a terrible matchup for him. I respect Paul George's defense more than anybody else in the NBA besides your boy Kawhi and a few others here. But the guy that I will focus on is LaVine. I think LaVine's got a great matchup. He's going to be popular. I know he's been touted everywhere. So it's not sneaky at all, but it could be good chalk. For me, I would, if I do a second lineup, it will have LaVine. As of right now, I don't have it because I'm playing Jokic and George. But I think it's totally fine if you want to go Zach LaVine in the spot. Again, I'm taking a stand of not playing DeRozan because of the fear of Paul George on him. But Alize Johnson's the guy I prefer over Tony Bradley just because of the point per minute production that we get from him. But Tony Bradley's fine too. I mean, he's a high point per minute guy too. It's just a matter of if we can trust his minutes, and I don't know if we can. So he should get more minutes going against Zubac, who I also love on the other side. We'll talk about in a second. I know we're running out of time, but yeah, I mean, for me, it's LaVine, it's Alize or Bradley. That's what I'm focusing on today from the Bulls, really.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't prioritize pairing up Tony Bradley and Alize Johnson as you pointed out. But I also don't think if I'm running 20 plus lineups that's like a rule I would set. But I think you limit your upside a little bit if you're playing both of those guys in the same lineup. I'm with you. I prefer LaVine slightly over DeRozan if I had to choose, but both of those guys to me project really well. Both should have a ton of usage. And then you look at a guy like Lonzo Ball who doesn't have, even with Vooch out, there's not a ton of usage left over for this guy. So he's kind of had to, when he's getting there fantasy-wise, it's because of all the peripherals, the rebounds, the assists. He's picking up multiple stocks. And his price reflects it at 6'6". So he's a fine play to me. I would rather get up to LaVine or DeRozan if spending up on this Bulls team. Kobe White not quite back for this team. He might be back this week, though. So some reinforcements coming for this beat-up Bulls team. Alex Caruso at 4K flat, Javi. If you just talked about him, I apologize if I missed it. But any love for a guy like Caruso who could see 30 minutes in this scenario?
Yeah, I didn't have any. A guy that I was very high on this year, and I thought he, with the more minutes, he'd be more fantasy production. But we're not seeing much. Like, I wouldn't say it's like as bad as Robert Covington, who sees a ton of minutes and doesn't do anything. But Caruso, not a guy that's been producing even with the minutes. So I'm a little less on it, not really high on it. And I know I believe you gave him an 8 or 9 too. So.
Yeah. I think, it's just the 4K flat price tag with the minutes upside. Caruso, not a big time scorer, but he just contributes in so many categories at that 4K price tag. He's a fine value in my opinion tonight. And flipping over to this Clippers side to close it out, Javi, Paul George, I love getting into your lineups. If you can fit in Paul George and Nikola Jokic and not be too disgusted at the other 6 positions in your lineup on DraftKings, that's something that I'm just fine with, is having that double spend up tonight. The Clippers being favored in this game at home. Spreads come down a little bit. I'm seeing 3.5 after opening at Clippers by 6. And if this game's going to be close, to me, this just gives more validity to the Paul George play. I think a lot of people are going to be watching the game logs and see that he hasn't cracked 50 in his last 5 outings, but the shot attempts are there. Like, the production is there. Only 27 minutes in that blowout of Minnesota on the 13th last night. 39 3/4 DK points in those 27 minutes. The 2 games before that, 25 and 24 shots for Paul George, and the peripherals have been great so far. I think he's probably in the MVP discussion, certainly not the favorite, but in the discussion, would make probably anybody's ballot of a top 5 at this point. So at 10-5, he's a great play in my opinion. Reggie Jackson still priced pretty moderately for his role at 6'3". I'm fine if you want to go there. Not a priority for me. Same with Eric Bledsoe 4.9, the price coming up a little bit. Luke Kennard price dropping a little bit. I think rightfully so. If if Luke Kennard gets hot from the field, guard forward eligible, he's an okay value, but I'd much rather get to a guy like Terrence Mann at 4.8, who is pretty much locked into 30 plus minutes at this point. He's also guard forward eligible. And then you talked about having some love for Ivica Zubac. So talk to me about the Clippers front court.
Yeah, no, I think Ivica Zubac, he's getting minutes. Like, that's the thing that usually shies you away from Zubac, but he's seen, except for yesterday, he had the blowout 23 minutes, which is important to note too, because I'm not going to say they have fresh legs, but they are pretty rested for sitting out
Sure.
basically a quarter and a half. But he's seen 29, 24, 28, 31, 34 minutes in his last 6 or 7 games here. So the minutes are there going against Chicago, who doesn't have Vooch. It's very important to note. So he's going to get Bradley or Elijah Johnson here. And I find it tough to not play Zubac with that double-double upside. DK points, I mean, it's last 5 games, 28 or more DK points in 4 of those 5, minus the Portland one where he struggled there. But I think there's a legit floor and ceiling here for Zubac. So I like him, especially in the spot against this Bull team that doesn't have Tony Bradley. So I love Zubac today, and I think he's going to go under own too, Zach. So I love it.
Yeah, I think it's a great point by you on the ownership, especially that, the way I'm looking at center on DraftKings today is I want to spend up for a Nikola Jokic. I think it's fine to play a guy like Christian Wood. Obviously, I love Jusuf Nurkic, or spend down below Ivica Zubac. So he could definitely go overlooked, especially being in this late night hammer that tips off at 9:30 Eastern. Double doubles in 4 of his last 5 games, and then and a little shout out to a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein, who in the blowout last game put up almost 40 DK points. I also think he's a fine value that should be low owned and a serious consideration on a late slate or a showdown type game mode. Anything else from this game, Javi?
No, I think it's Levine and then having Alizai Johnson or Bradley, having one of those, and then bring back with. I mean, you don't have to bring it back always, but I love Paul George here and I love Zubac. Those are the 2 priorities I would have. But I'll sprinkle in some Bledsoe, Kennard. Bledsoe's been on a tear lately. I don't know if Joe Metz is okay. We gotta send an APB for him, but 31 or more DK points in 3 straight, including 39 DK points yesterday in 26 minutes. This guy's crushing lately. Can't ignore that. So yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. And the price coming up, and maybe that's going to keep people off him, even though he's been on a little bit of a hot streak lately. So Eric Bledsoe, definitely an option there. Well, that's going to do it, man. We went over an hour for 5 games on a Sunday slate. So we'll take off here. I know some questions piling up in the FTN NBA Discord. We will get to all of those off stream here. Anybody that's watching on YouTube and not an FTN Daily subscriber, we answer all those questions before, during, and after every stream in the FTN NBA Daily Discord. So if you haven't signed up yet, again, you can use that promo code FTNTV. That's going to give you 15% off any package, monthly, annual, whatever you want to do. Get over here, join us, join in on the fun at FTN Daily. That's going to do it for us here on this Sunday NBA Live, presented by SuperDraft Daily Fantasy. So for Javi, I'm Zach. For our producer extraordinaire, Thomas, behind the glass. I don't have it queued up, but as always, let's get those beans, and good night.